video is what makes you happy. So when asked like, what are your favorite childhood memories? One of the first things that comes to my mind, or one of the main things that comes to my mind, is York Gardens Adventure Playground. When I was a child, we lived in an area called Battersea for a few years on Winstanley Estate, and we had a local park called York Gardens, and we had York Gardens Adventure Playground. And I used to love going there because it was like the little community room and the playground area, the bark on the floor, and it was just lovely. And in thinking about this memory, it was not so much about, okay, it makes me happy, but what was it? What other things? So I've come up with like 6-7 things here as to what specific things made it such a happy experience. The first thing is obviously the play. It's a playground. You can go there, you can feel free and just do your thing. Number 2, creativity. You could do arts and crafts there. And also, this is where I developed my love for dance, because a young lady there and some others would teach us dancing and we'd perform it for people. And I really, really love dance. And you know what, as I was saying that, I remembered another happy childhood memory where a close family friend, she was like a cousin to me, more than a best friend, you know what I mean, like a cousin. We used to make up little dances to Aaliyah's song. So that's another happy childhood memory. Like, we really thought we were just a ting and we performed for the family. It was so fun. But dancing at York Gardens was a really lovely experience. And the freedom, you know, just the freedom to play and explore. You know, when you're a child, you're so willing to just be free. But as you get older, you start to care more about what people think. And you start to care more, you know, about how you're coming across, and you lose some of that freedom. But when you remember that freedom as a child, it's just like, oh man, I wasn't thinking of all these things. I was just free. Number 4, community. It was a sense of community, especially living in that area. If anybody else was coming from, you know, a single parent home, like, you know, one parent living at home. I don't want to make it sound like my dad wasn't involved at all in our childhood, but we lived with our mum for most of the time. So just having that sense of community, or for other people whose parents may have been at home but working, it was lovely. And it was a place for parents to meet and engage as well. Now, the food, they gave food there, but also there was a local bakery, and sometimes she would give out free food at 6 o'clock, and we would run and get little cakes and biscuits and whatever. So that was really nice. And 6, safety. The adults felt safe, and obviously there was a boundary around. So you were free, but there was still a sense of, you know, there's a boundary there. And number 7, color. The fence was colorful. I remember the color, like, I just remember the bark and the colorful fence, you know, and the rope thing that I would climb, and just, it was just lovely. It was simple now looking back, but that's the thing, isn't it? As a child, you don't even need a lot. And we get caught up sometimes and we forget we want to do all of these things for our children and buy them all these things. And yes, that's good. But when you look at your childhood, the things that made you happiest, they were really quite simple, you know. All right. Now, what makes me happy now? Laughter, my girls' laughter, laughter with my husband, right? Peace. And it's so interesting because I read this quote online one time that said, people who are toxic find peace boring. And that's something to keep in mind. Like, what is your view towards peace? Do you feel like you're a peaceful person? Are you around peaceful people? What would bring forth more peace in your life right now? At the end of the day, we're going to go through trials and tribulations, but some of them are our own making. So if you're watching this video and you realize, hey, the trajectory that I'm on, I'm just going to keep having chaos in my life, see how you can go about changing it so that you can experience peace, because you need that for your mental health, you know. And gratefulness, writing down what I'm grateful for every single day, it's just made me happier. And I say what makes me happy now, but at the end of the day, all of those things that I mentioned as a child, if you put all those things into adulthood, it produces the same happiness, the freedom, community, safety. We still need boundaries with ourselves, with others. What is the main thing everybody talks about nowadays? And me, boundaries, all these different things. And freedom. When you feel free to be yourself, you just feel more authentic. And when you know that you are being yourself, you feel happier, because you know you're not living a double life. Whoever you are at home is whoever you are outside, and that feels really good. All right, our verse of encouragement says, Philippians chapter 4 verse 8. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. Oh, and I just have to say, I found a nice little documentary on YouTube about Winstanley Estate and York Gardens Estate for anyone who's interested. But it was really sweet how they put it together. And it was basically people in the neighborhood giving oral histories about their experience living in the area. And I think that's so important. A friend of mine always talks about speaking to the elders, listening to their stories. And I think this is something that will help us with our happiness as well, because you understand more where people are coming from and you understand a huger part of what shaped you as well. So I'm so grateful for my time there, even though we lived there just for a few years. I can't remember how long. I'd have to check with my mummy again. But we were there a few years. But I'm so grateful and thankful to everybody who is involved. If they ever see this, thank you so much to all of the adults and people who put their best effort in. And also thank you to the people who tried their best to keep it open, because there were people campaigning to keep York Gardens Adventure Playground open and Battersea Park Adventure Playground open. But the council, due to budget cuts, closed it down about like 10 years ago. And I remember when I first heard about it, I was emotional. And I'm not going to lie, watching this documentary, it actually made me emotional as well, because I just thought, wow, I was so fortunate to have that experience. But a lot of the young people who are there now or were there after it got shut down, or who saw it getting shut down, like, what do people expect them to do? Yeah. And sometimes we look at people on the road, young people, and we judge them. But sometimes you don't know what they're going through at home. And you also, if there's no alternative, then what do they do? And in general, society has changed to where we're more insular now as well. Back then, we were just more outside. It's like my generation is like the last one of like, hey, let's go outside. Now we have to really force ourselves. Sometimes even I have to force myself to say, Charlotte, go outside. Just step outside the door, go outside, stop being lazy. Step outside. Even today, I just said, let me go outside and get some sunlight. Whereas when I was a child, you didn't have to ask me twice if I wanted to go outside. I was out. So that's something, again, that I have to cultivate, like, Charlotte, get outside. Because when you don't, you're more prone to the depression and all these things. So yeah, this, just thank you. Big up York Gardens Adventure Playground. Big up Winstanley Estate. There were some lovely neighbours there who we had met as well. But yeah, I'm so grateful. So think about what makes you happy and let me know in the comments. All right then. Bye, ladies.